G-Man Boxing. Do you know what I mean? Every single live he donates. I see him on other lives donating. He's got the bag on it.
Alright, people. Bit of a different one, right? Bit of a different one. We got a WTF video, but it's not about a fighter. This is not even a career review. We're just going to be talking about Eddie Hearn, because I haven't really done an individual video just talking about him and where things are at with him, because you got to say, right, I mean, the first time we ever seen Eddie Hearn, was seen in person, we didn't really hear about him much, was in the Audley Harrison-David Haye fight. He was there with Audley Harrison. That was the first time any of us were ever really aware of Eddie Hearn, because at the time, Matchroom was coming back to boxing, but Barry Hearn was running the shows on Sky. They were all very small shows. But in the time he's been around, this is probably the lowest point of his career, you would have to say, or if not the lowest, certainly the most difficult, you would have to say, because, you know, even times where things seem difficult for Eddie Hearn, an example would be when AJ lost to Ruiz. There was a lot of things kind of going on around that time, but he was able to come through that. AJ was able to win, and, you know, normality was restored in the kind of Matchroom world, you'd say. Whereas now, it's very different. It's not just this whole Conor Benn, Chris Eubank Jr. failed PED test situation. It's everything that surrounds it. You know, there's obviously the stuff with the zone. There's the, like, Eddie Hearn at the press conference before his fight was cancelled, apparently said he didn't want to be asked any questions on this. When he does do an interview, he gets interviewed by Coogan of all people, and in the interview, which is 40 odd minutes long, there's not, it's Eddie Hearn trying to, in some cases, lie, where he said that, what was it? He said something like words to the effect of that they had this show pulled before the British Boxing Board knew, or before the leak was made, and stuff that clearly didn't happen. But it just seems like Eddie Hearn right now is in probably the toughest place of his career, and it's probably something that he's never had. You know, since he's came into boxing, it's been fair to say it's been pretty smooth sailing. You know, you have to look at it like this, you know. I mean, it's not a career review per se, but let's look at Eddie Hearn from the start. You know, he came in with Carl Froch, Kell Brook, Tommy Coyle. Well, Tommy Coyle never really, he never really got to that level, but he had Tommy Coyle, he had Luke Campbell, someone else. Who else did he have? Someone else as well. I can't think of who it was. It wasn't a massive, it didn't turn out to be a massive name, but there was someone as well. Escapes me. But they were kind of the Matchroom guys. They start signing a couple of fighters. They get AJ out of the amateurs. They get Froch Groves. When Froch retires, AJ was kind of at that point when Carl Froch retired. AJ was starting to become the new guy, and he had unbelievable success for those couple of years with Anthony Joshua. The 2016 Olympic cycle, everyone seemed to sign with Eddie Hearn and Matchroom. Very few went to Frank Warren. You know, he seemingly had it all. You know, Frank Warren, even when he did the BT Sport deal, he took a few fighters from Matchroom. He took Josh Warrington. I think he took some of this. Josh Warrington was the biggest name, but he took some smaller fighters like Tyrone Nurse and people like that at the time who were they were fighting on Matchroom shows. They were with Eddie Hearn. He took them, but they were never going to do anything anyway. So he never really had any crises like that. And, you know, Frank Warren, he just kept chipping away. He just kept chipping away, doing his thing. And with Eddie Hearn, he started expanding things out. He brought Matchroom to the US before he did the DAZN deal. So obviously he brought Matchroom to the US, I think it was 2017, the back end of 2017. He started doing Matchroom US. Danny Jacobs was his first signing, funny enough, because Danny Jacobs was fighting on HBO back then. And his first fight was Luis Aries. That was Matchroom USA. It wasn't anything to do with DAZN. And he was doing a few shows out there. You know, he had, you know, some of his fighters fight on top ranked shows. You know, like he done Scott Quigg versus Oscar Valdez. That was on a top ranked show. And then he did the DAZN deal. And the DAZN deal at the time, we were kind of like, I remember at the time kind of being like, I never heard of DAZN. So I was kind of like, okay, this is different. It seems pretty good. You know, the early shows, they weren't bad. You know, they were okay. There was growing pains, obviously. Obviously, the zone now looks very different to how it did back then. And then obviously, you know, AJ going from strength to strength, things like that. So it was always, there was never really any crises in that time. And Eddie Hearn, I think during that time, you know, British boxing started to boom. Everything was going real good. And of course, Sky played a big part in that. He played a massive part, come to think of it, you know. At the time, Eddie Hearn had a big stable of fighters. He had a big stable of up-and-coming fighters. So he was putting a lot of them on these next-gen shows that were happening on sometimes on a Wednesday and a Thursday. He had fights on that following weekend. Sky were showing trailers for the fights, and they were plugging the fights and advertising them on darts, on F1, on football. You just, you know, it's a well-oiled machine. You know, it just runs well. And you take something away from that, it's not going to run as well. And obviously, we fast forward to 2021. Eddie Hearn announces that he's going to be moving everything to the zone. And I at the time, I was kind of like, well, let's see. Because, you know, I know that Sky, I definitely don't, lately, in everything, whether it's football, F1, stuff like that, the way they've been doing things and their team has not been the best. I know Eddie Hearn is not really, he's a lot more charismatic, and he tends to, I kind of thought he would be more character based when getting his team ready. And instantly you could see there was problems. And I know Hatman was mentioning this in a video he did about Eddie Hearn, and he's spot on, because you think of it like this, right? You've Eddie Hearn here, who, he always talks about himself being, you know, he knows what the fans want, and he's approachable, and he gets what the fans want. So we're thinking, okay, we're going to get a great team. We're going to get, like, the zone. I mean, this team's just going to be, it's going to be great. They got Andy Lee, which is good. Now, originally, Ade was brought on to do a couple of just pre-shows. So obviously he's now joined the team. So at the actual broadcast team, but at the time he wasn't on the broadcast team. So only person that I really knew of was Andy Lee. Well, knew who'd be good was Andy Lee. When I saw the rest, I was just like, what the hell is this? I was like, of all the, you have this opportunity and you give us this team, which is crap. And you act like it's the game changed. I mean, you've got Chris Lloyd, who, I don't mind Chris Lloyd that much, but he's just annoying, and he's just, Chris Lloyd is the sort of guy where, do you remember that picture of him and Sky Nicholson, where he did nothing but spam Twitter with that pic? Every chance he got, he would upload that pic of him and Sky Nicholson, and then he comes out and says, oh, that picture embarrasses me, I wish people wouldn't show it. It's like, mate, you're doing nothing but spamming that picture around Twitter. If you're embarrassed, why do you keep spamming people with it? Darren Barker, who's just meh. You know, Tony Bellew, less said about him the better. Mike Costello, I was like, this is just crap. And then you get Maya Jama, who only lasted for a couple of shows. Yeah, Laura Woods isn't too bad. But I was like, this team is not game changed. And then Eddie Hearn, with how he was selling certain things, you know, Eddie Hearn used to say about Frank Warren that all Frank Warren ever does when he talks about his shows, Frank Warren shows, is he's trying to shine a turd. You know, trying to shine a turd. So, what I was like, you're doing the exact same thing with this broadcast team. You're literally trying to shine a turd. You've just gone complete safety first, and you've got people who we don't even know who the hell they are, like Maya Jama and people like that. I mean, no boxing background at all. And you pay, apparently she was on $100,000 a show. I mean, that is mental if that's true. Mental. So you that. Then, you know, you had the stuff where you're trying to get like new fighters built up like Conor Benn, which I get that. And then you start being disingenuous and trying to sell Chris Algieri as a world level top 15 to top 10 opponent. And I'm like, no, he's not. Then you have fighters, an exodus of fighters. So you've Lawrence Okoli looking to get out. You have Demetrius Andre who's gone. You have Felix Cash looking to get out. You have Liam Smith who's gone from the zone. You have, who else did he get? Richard Riakporhe is gone. God knows what's happening with Dylan White. Who else? Oh, there's been more. Lerone Richards is another one. And the problem with that is that's your stable who you could easily get some shows out with these guys. And I think one of the other reasons is why is because the Zone have been hemorrhaging so much money that whilst it was fine to be paying Lawrence Okoli, Lerone Richards, Felix Cash, I believe, was having issues with the Zone. I don't know if he's going to stay with them or not. It's all right to pay them really, really good money, but now you're needing to recoup some of that money, so you're not paying them as good of money, and these guys are saying, see you later. So your shows are suffering as a result. I mean, when's the last time? I was just thinking about this myself the other day. In September, we had one show in the UK. Don't include Canelo. We're not including the US, but in the UK, we had one Matchroom show in the month of September. And we currently have one Matchroom show in the month of October. For $8.99, that's not good. That's not a good deal. For one show a month, that's really not a good deal. And now you chuck on this, the whole Conor Benn, Eubank Jr. failed PED test situation, and Eddie Hearn just not being forthcoming with anything, looking to just kick the can down the road, talking about suing the British Boxing Board of Control and all that jazz. And for me, it's just right now, it just seems like everything, it seems like he's facing the first real crisis of his career. And we're seeing a lot of the bad character traits that maybe some of us kind of knew deep down were always there really come to the surface now. Really come to the surface now. So it's going to be interesting to see what happens moving forward with Eddie Hearn, because he's spoken about not staying in boxing forever, long before all this. And I never felt that Frank Smith is the guy to lead Matchroom after Eddie Hearn, because he just doesn't have that charisma, that charm. He doesn't really have anything. And I wonder what's going to happen. I really do. I wonder, because there's no shows really being announced. We've had nothing really for November or December, except Josh Warrington. That's it. There's nothing really on the horizon. And it's really not looking good for Eddie Hearn and Matchroom. There's no new signings. There's no anything. And again, I'm just looking at this from the outside looking in, and I'm thinking, did Eddie Hearn oversell himself? Did he think that all the success he had whilst he was on Sky was just down to him, and it's just going to go transfer seamlessly over to the Zone? Because it certainly hasn't. And I think a lot of the decisions he's made have been bad decisions with regards some of the shows he's put on, some of the matchmaking he's put on, like Josh Warrington. I know this wasn't on the Zone, but Josh Warrington, Lara, I mean, that was just a shocking matchmaking. Some of the matchmaking's just been shocking over there. And the punditry team, I've said that before, it's just terrible. It's just bland. And, I think that Eddie Hearn, when he went to the Zone, he fully expected, because I think that was talked about before Eddie Hearn made the move. I think there was rumours circulating that the Zone were looking to acquire BT Sport. And if they did, we'd be in a completely different... Well, we wouldn't be in a completely different situation talking about the Ben Eubank situation, I'd imagine. But we'd be in probably a very different situation looking at the stable, talking about the lack of shows we have. Be in a very different situation then. So, yeah, it's not looking good for Eddie Hearn at this moment. Do I think he'll get through it? Honestly, I reckon he probably will. He probably will. I don't know if he has the fight or the grit that Frank Warren has, but I suspect that he will. I suspect that, was it Margaret Thatcher who said sometimes you just got to ride the storm out? I think it was her who said that. Whenever some things are going really bad, you just got to wait it out and eventually it'll pass. Maybe he's going to do something like that. I think maybe he's going to do something like that, and then hope that he can maybe use that little bit of banter, a little bit of charm, charisma to just kind of, it's all in the past now. Maybe he'll do that. I don't know. Let me know in the comment section what your thoughts are. Smash the like button if you could, subscribe if you haven't already. Yeah, let me know in the comment section. Hope you enjoyed the video, people. Smash the like button as always. Subscribe, all that good stuff. For now, lads and lassies, I'll talk to you Wednesday for Midweek Report. You'll have a different background for that.